What's up, Ana? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So tell us where we're at.
Okay, so we're at the Florence Mound, and it is over 1,700 years old, and it is the homeland of the Cherokee and the Chickasaw people.
Okay.
It is also the homeland of the Shawnee and the Yuchi people, who are now part of the Muskogee Confederation.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. Yes.
You know, when I come here to Alabama, specifically Florence, because of course I have ancestral ties here, I usually stop in Oakville. I check out Jesse Owens' home, where his birthplace, as well as the mounds that are over there. But this one is in Florence, Alabama. So this is a museum, and we start off with a quote when we walk in: "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors; we borrow it from our children." Ancient Indian proverb. I think that's really dope. Tell us about the inside of the museum and what people should expect when they come here.
Okay, so when we come into the entryway, I'm pretty excited about this right now. This case was done by one of our educational programs for high school students and middle school students. So this is this is the junior museum program. They put this exhibit together, and we acknowledge the land, we acknowledge those who lived here before, and also the creation stories. And creation stories help identify indigenous peoples and tell who they are. That's actually more important than names, but not so much the who and the what, but the how.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were just talking about names. You know, me going from Deshaun to Frederick, and then some of the things in which happened in your life. As it relates to your love for history, where did it begin? And if you don't mind sharing some of your own cultural background.
Sure. Goodness, I love to learn. And so as a young child, I actually was really excited. I can remember all the way back to like kindergarten. My nana would, she's Chicana, and she would make tortillas and just all the things. And I remember listening to Linda Ronstadt when I was a little girl.
I love Linda Ronstadt.
And she would wear all the regalia and all like the big Mexican skirts, the hoop skirts and everything. And my cousin and I used to dress up and pretend to be her in her band. Yeah. And he used to pretend to be a mariachi, and my biological father was mariachi. So I've loved my own culture for a long time, and I always used to love listening to my nana stories and my tias tell me like how things used to be. Sure. But yeah, it was a little conflicting as I got older, because then it was like one way in the house, but then we had to be one way outside the house. Yeah.
And how tough was that, if you don't mind, and we can kind of walk through the museum, because right now we're standing in front of the women's. So I prefer this right here. This looks a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So you can step in. Yeah, let's do that.
I didn't realize where I was standing.
No, it's all good. But yeah, so what was that, right? Like having to learn how to turn it on and turn it off, if you don't mind telling us that.
Yeah, well now I know the big phrase is code switching. I had no idea that's what I was doing. I was just a child, and I was taught to speak one way inside the house and speak another way outside the house. And don't tell people you're Mexican. Don't tell people that you have any. I did hear the word Indian. Like, don't say you're Indian. But it was confusing to me, because I knew that the native people, I'm from Arizona, that native people lived on a reservation. I was confused as to why we didn't live on the reservation. But I was just told like not to ask. And if people do ask, tell them you're Italian, because my grandfather's Italian.
So you were told to not identify your indigenous roots or your Chicana roots. Okay. Because of the danger that was associated with it.
Yes, because my grandmother had a pretty horrible experience in school, and I still don't know the specifics, and I don't know that she'd be okay with me sharing all of that. But I do know that she was forced to speak English in first grade, and I found out through my graduate studies a couple of years ago that there were actually segregated schools in Arizona and New Mexico that were for Spanish-speaking kids, and so Mexicans. And she would talk about how the teacher would hit her with a ruler anytime that she spoke Spanish.
So it was kind of like the same things that were happening at the boarding schools, at Carlisle School and all the other places.
Right.
Golly.
But this is in Oracle, Arizona. And so she would say that, the Mexican kids, they were mixed, but that they were treated differently until they could speak English. and then they got favored if they could act like the white kids. And so she was always very afraid. And then she did not finish high school. She got her GED and married my grandfather a couple years after that, and then had a hard time assimilating in his family because they were immigrants from Italy, and his Italian grandmother did not approve of her. She could understand the language because it's similar to Spanish, and knew that they didn't approve of her. So I think when I came along and she knew that my biological father was Chicano also, she raised me specifically in a certain way. And because my mother was really young, so she was still working, still going to school. She was 19. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother and my tias.
Getting those stories.
But then I knew like to turn it off when I would go out.
So let's do a quick walk through the museum before we go outside. So this is the entrance, you all, right here. And this shape right here, right, this design, what does this signify? I imagine that most things in here have some type of significance from a cultural perspective.
The city actually decided on this before Brian and I were hired. But I have a lot of friends who are native who have reassured me that there is a significance to it. And I had seen it growing up in Arizona, but it's a swirl and it goes clockwise and it means eternal life. And even if you go through many different phases in your life, there's always a rebirth.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. So museum exhibit this way, as you all see. Let's head in.
Yep. Come on in. So, do you want like a little tour?
Yeah, we'll do a little tour on the inside. It looks like there's various different periods that are being identified on the wall, so we'll go into that.
So this is a replica of Dust Cave, and Dust Cave is on Chickasaw homeland. It is protected today by the Tennessee Valley Authority and the University of Alabama archaeologists. So it is closed off to the public now because there was looting going on. That's something else that we talk about a lot here.
Is that local in Florence?
It's at McFarland Park, so it's just a few minutes away. But anyway, the way that the exhibit is done is by time period. So it goes all the way back to pre-contact. So we talk about the Paleo-Indian period. In our exhibit, we have projectile points. And this just, we are allowed to have these because they were utilitarian. So they're not sacred items that were used for ceremony or anything like that. But anyway, it just tracks how people evolve and how the technology changed.
And most people would just call these arrowheads, you know, but the true name of it is a projectile point.
Yes, or a spear point.
A spear point.
It just depends on who you're talking to. Sometimes I don't even realize I've said it.
No, it's because I wanted to point that out because I've heard that before. And I'm just like, in my young mind, it was just always everything is arrowhead.
It's arrowhead. Yep. So then great extinctions, we talk about, this is always real entertaining, that, you know, we talk about all the animals, the relatives, as we say in indigenous culture. That would have lived here. So the mastodon, and how people would have hunted and gathered. But I also like to point out, because I love to talk about the culture, that it wasn't just like, we're going to all kill the animals. There was a relationship. There was a process. There was a ceremony. You pray for food, and then that animal would offer itself up to you. And deer hunting, elk hunting, that's all done the same way today. So I think that's kind of cool.
For sure.
So we talk about on this other side is the Archaic period. So the Paleo period would have been where it would have been much colder. And as time goes on, it gets warmer. So life changes a little bit. And there was always fishing going on, but we talk about spear point fishing with those kind of projectile points. This one talks about it a little bit more. I jumped ahead.
And these are advancing over time.
Yes.
The projectile points.
That's right. And they're changing based upon what's available and also the technologies that are growing and developing. So like the late Archaic period, you have the atlatl come into use. So now not only can we hunt with bow and arrow, but we've got an atlatl where we can hunt larger animals. And so then over here, we've got a few more artifacts. Again, this one was the one I was looking for. And our light's out right now. But you've got some tools here that show you that it became pretty advanced.
It did.
So, and then we've got this nice little diorama that talks about the climate or shows you the climate. So how it would have started. And then as you press it again, how it evolves. See if it changes. Sometimes it cooperates. There it is.
Okay, there it is.
So there's the mound. So this is
a depiction of what we have right here. Okay.
It is. Okay. And what it might have looked like during that time period. Okay, there's our video. I triggered it by accident. I forgot to do that. Okay. Do you want me to go cut it off?
No. Okay. Keep going.
Okay. So this is our only panel that recognizes the woodland period. Yeah, let me go cut it off. Yeah. So this is the only panel that actually references the time period in which the mound was built. So it's the woodland era. And the woodland era was when they quit being so nomadic, indigenous peoples did. They quit following the food and started stopping to grow food. And so what's interesting is it's kind of myth that in America that they only grew corn, bean, and squash, but actually prehistorically there were different plants. The sunflower, which we have growing outside, was actually one of the first plants that they grew, or that we have evidence that that's what they were growing. Stumpweed, things like that. But the pottery is what is depicted here in the exhibit. And the pottery was mostly utilitarian and ceremonial. A lot of times the Mississippian pottery gets confused with the woodland pottery. But the big difference is it's not as ornate or elaborate. It really was used simply for different day-to-day uses and ceremony. The other thing is like the jewelry, the regalia, and then we've got some ceremonial pipes and things, and you'll see some of those in here. And we do believe that, we don't know exactly, but we do believe that this was part of their day-to-day lifestyle. But there, a lot of times before, in the old museum, people would kind of make up stories. We're trying to get away from that.
Yes.
And so,
trying to be as factual as possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Pottery was broken for a reason. And so these pieces that are put back together.
And they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So what would have been the reason for them to have been broken? For ceremonial practices?
It depends. So if this was strictly utilitarian, it could have been just because we were done using it. There was no soap back then. So you've got bugs and critters living in there. So you get rid of it after a certain amount of time. But actually, traditionally speaking, they had ceremony when the seasons would change. So it was traditional to break the pot and then start over.
Oh,
and so, but I learned actually at a conference this past weekend that a lot of times it's not in good practice to piece things back together. So this would have been something that would have been done before 2018.
Okay, as humans, we just know how to screw things up.
Yeah, right. And so same thing with the shells. Like typically these holes, I don't believe were put inside originally. It was something that was done in more modern day. And typically you wouldn't mess with those unless you were going to use it for regalia or jewelry, something like that. Now these were found, these little copper beads and things, these were used to wear and also for identification and also for trade. And so before there was monetary value, you traded what you had, you know? So then we talk about the Mississippian period over here, and this was really different. It's interesting how indigenous history looks at it versus the way archaeologists do. So archaeologists use these words like the archaic period, the Mississippian period, the woodland era, and eras is another word they use. And that just helps you organize the time and the location where, and the geography, where when we talk to our advisory board, or we talk to visitors who come do homeland tours with the Chickasaw Nation or the Muskogee Nation, whoever it is. We even got to meet Chief Hoskins last year from the Cherokee Nation.
He's doing some great things up there.
Oh, he is, yeah. But they speak of these times differently. And so when I do a field trip, I try to convey a little bit of both, but also know that I don't have the authority to speak on everything. So I do talk about how the archaeologist who comes with the Chickasaw, he has let me know that I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I didn't realize that was ringing. he let me know that actually the Mississippian era was a time where they were kind of adopting European traditions and it become a little bit more hierarchical. But then they realized how it was pitting themselves against each other. Yeah, and so they decided to go back to the old ways and became more egalitarian after that. So when you go into the historic period, which is what we're coming into now, they actually adopted, which is still the same practices they have today, where they're more egalitarian and have more of a community-based government instead of there's one high class and there's somebody else who's lower. Here on the right, we're really excited to have these. This is a trade shirt and a finger woven belt.
This one right here?
This white one.
Okay.
And a finger woven belt. This is made by Nita Flanagan. She's one of our advisory board members. She's also the vice president of the Alabama chapter of the Trail of Tears Association. Okay. And then she's a member of the Eastern Band Cherokee Nation in North Carolina. She also made this ribbon skirt. But here we see the kind of conflict of the old museum versus the new museum, and that's just something that we have to cope with and have to explain. And so because we are a municipality, so to change the cases, it takes a lot of time. But on this side, we have some replicas of cultural dress, but they're actually, I had another Native friend of mine who came to teach here, and she is Lakota, and she said that these are actually Plains cultural dress. They have nothing to do with the Southeast.
Down here, yeah.
So they have the fringe on them because of the grass, the high grass, where you wouldn't have found fringe here in the Southeast. So then we talk about the Trail of Tears, and the kids do get into this. This is in social studies standards. These would have been items that they may have used or they may have traded with. Gorgets are really important because they identify people, but they were also used to trade. Okay. So, and that was something that was actually copied from the Europeans. And a lot of times we get these ideals that, they wanted to be like us. Not necessarily.
Not really.
But the way that I've heard it explained from a teacher who's Cherokee who came to give a presentation here, his name is Micah Swimmer. He said, the thing is, it's not that we wanted to be like you. It's that what we thought you had, it was really cool. So we're going to figure out our own way to make it. And he's like, we did the same things with other tribes. He had a lot of regalia on that day that he got from his friend who's from the Navajo Nation out west. And he said, it's not that we want to, you're better than us. It's just we like the way...
Yeah, we're going to remix it a little bit.
Yeah, we like your style. We're going to...
We're going to remix it just a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
So then we end here. This kind of disheartens me too, and I hope it can change in the future. But that we end on the Trail of Tears, we don't talk about resilience. But when I'm giving the tour for a field trip, I will talk about the resilience here in the ribbon skirt, because the ribbon skirt didn't come around until the 1980s. So Native life didn't end with genocide. It didn't end with the Trail of Tears. They're not all gone. We are still here, as the hashtag says. And so it talks about the trauma, but I like to talk about the resilience with the kids or the students and talk about how that trauma made their culture so much stronger.
For sure.
And how it's not just the Cherokee. They only named the Cherokee here. But it was all 5 tribes and more than that. Probably some that, ended up getting to bigger tribes like the Yuchi, who are part of the Muskogee Nation now. This is a finger woven belt and it's got beads on it. It is not the belt of George Colbert. That is a mistake. We did not know that until just last year. Okay. And the Chickasaw came in on a homeland tour, and this is why it's good to be friends with the people that you're talking about. Yep. And one of their professionals, I think he was a historian, wrote to us and said, that information isn't exactly right. And so we did validate with our cultural specialist, LaDonna Brown, she sits on our advisory board, that it is a finger woven belt, but there's no proof that it comes from George Colbert.
Okay. And we're close to Colbert County.
We are, and actually it was George is the last person that we have history of, but it was Levi, his older brother, who did the exchange with the American administration, with Andrew Jackson and John Coffey.
For sure. And one of the things that I do like about this depiction, even though it's not a lot, is that it also identifies darker hued indigenous folks, like right there.
I like that too.
Right
there. Right there.
So you can't really see, but you can see because the Trail of Tears, whether it was also enslaved African Americans, or just consensual families as well, because that happened this side of the Mississippi, as well as other parts of the country, that everyone is represented, because there were so many people that unfortunately died on the Trail of Tears, and it was just such an unfortunate event that, you know, the historical trauma has just been passed down generation after generation, because there really hasn't been any true reconciliation, for sure. And so as you see right here, everyone, all the different roots represented. And also the Trail of Tears was also by water. It wasn't all by land.
In fact, here it was by water. Yep. Okay. So they got on at Waterloo. Okay. And there is a difference in the names too. So the Cherokee call it the Trail of Tears, where the Chickasaw call it the Great Removal. So the Chickasaw had 10 years to negotiate the removal. They actually got to go pick out their land. But after all that negotiation, Itawamba is how he's named, but Levi Colbert, he was part Scottish and Chickasaw. And he actually passed before the final decision. And so John Coffey took that liberty and forced the rest of his people out and did not give him the land that he was promised. And George got into a little bit of funny business with that as well, because he also owned a plantation and slaves.
Oh, absolutely.
And
the Colbert brothers were different.
They were different.
They were different.
Yeah, and so I try to convey that to the kids. I got the opportunity to write the social studies state standards this past year. And I wasn't able to put all that detail in. Yeah. But in field trips, I try to, or with teachers, when I talk to teachers, I try to make sure that we uncover some of these local myths.
Yeah, for sure. So we ready to walk out?
Sure.
Let's head on out.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, folks, so now we're outside. Time to get to the meat and potatoes of things, the reason why we're here. Not that the inside was not interesting, but this is always more interesting to me because it is, I don't know, it's just pretty cool to see these. And, you know, to the naked eye, someone just may think it's just a hill, but we know it to be much more than that. So, Ana, tell us, what do we have here?
So this is the Florence Mound, and it is a ceremonial mound. It is 43 feet tall, 70 steps to the top, and we know that there are no burials here.
No burials here.
No burials here.
Strictly ceremonial.
Strictly ceremonial.
Can you give people the differences between the mounds?
So they did an excavation back in 1997, and were able to find that there were no bodies or human remains found. Also, that the way that it was built was layer by layer. That it was constructed in a way that aligns with other ceremonial mounds. Okay. And so typically they're built in a specific type of way, so they're flat on top. Okay. Your burial mounds are going to be conical in shape. And also there was a level of ash on the lower, now it's not on the top layer, but it would have been the top layer before time took over. That was proof that they had held ceremony up on the top.
Now, has there been anything that was found here that's now, inside the museum?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, so our collection actually comes from along the Pickwick Basin and around the Tennessee River, and it was brought in by community members. And so that was kind of how the old museum used to be run, where now we are more culture and mound centered than we are artifact centered.
Artifact centered, okay. And this was erected in 2023?
Yes.
All right, so as you all see right here, 43 feet between AD 0 to 400. Wow.
It's part of the Copina culture. We do have a little exhibit inside that talks about that.
Okay.
So Copina means copper and galena.
Okay.
that mixture of the two minerals. It's just a time where it was heavily found.
Gotcha. So should we head up?
Sure.
Let's do it. You ready to burn some calories?
Yeah. I got my watch on. I'm counting.
Right. And we're at 1028 South Court Street, you all. Indian Mound and Museum. All right, so we're going to burn some calories and we're going to go up here. So how often do you all get visitors on a daily basis?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah. The only time that we don't really get visitors, well, Mondays we're closed.
Okay.
And we do administrative duties. But then the only time that we ever really have like really, really slow times is when it gets really, really cold.
Yeah.
Even during the hottest days of the year, we'll still have
people out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Monday and they're closed. I feel special because I was able to get this tour. All right. So yeah, we're about to really burn some
so we got
here.
70 steps.
70 steps.
And I'm going to move this out of your way. These steps were not put up until the 1980s. Traditionally and respectfully speaking, you should not mess with mounds. But in the 1980s, they didn't really know that. And if they did, they kind of disregarded it because they did not have a relationship with the tribes, the old museum. But now that we do, we make sure that we just take care of it in a way that they would like us to. We have a lot of native plants.
I was just about to ask, is this intentional?
This is actually natural, but I wonder if it was intentional and things have just started coming back.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's native and she makes a lot of our herbal products in the gift shop. And she says she thinks because of the way that we're taking care of it, that's why all the native plants are coming back.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes. So we've got wild Cherokee strawberries. We've got, they're not out right now because it's not the time of the year for them. But they're out, but they don't have strawberries on them right now.
Okay.
There's nettle, there's plantain. I was taking pictures of them this morning. Then we have dayflower violets. Those are all pollinator plants. So everything on here helps other things. Sorry, I gotta catch my breath.
No, listen, I'm over here. Look, I'm over here trying to keep it together. So make no bones about it. 73 steps, my heartbeat is going up. Yeah, I'm looking at my watch. I'm at 110, so.
Yeah. I know, mine too.
Yeah. Deep breaths. Woosah. All right, we made it.
Yeah. So, and I do that during tours. I'll forget to stop talking.
Yep, and keep on going, for sure. And I'm seeing this, like, this industrial piece right here. And I hate that. It's like, being so close to such an, national treasure, if you will, and there's industry that's here.
And so that was intentional by settler culture, but I think about what it would have been 1,700 years ago.
Yeah, and it's overlooking the river too.
Yeah, so the water probably would have flowed up. So the dam is what has caused it to flow in that direction, and there's more land. But the water probably would have came up pretty close. And we believe that it would have been ceremonial. So there's some theory that people would have traveled to come and celebrate. So they typically, still today, celebrate the turn of the season.
I was just going to ask you that.
So we still have a ceremony up here. It is open to the public. It is done by actually an African indigenous woman, Dr. Carter, who actually holds ceremony up here.
Beautiful.
And so you acknowledge the change of the year, you thank the earth for giving us another go round, and have the seasons, offer up. We would leave offerings up here too. And, but for the most part, we have the Chickasaw and the Cherokee's permission to use it for educational purposes. And any kind of, the only thing we can't do is, I always say leave no trace. Don't pick anything. Don't leave your trash up here.
Yeah.
But we do use it for, I think, probably what it would have been used for, which is to come up here and learn, and also to celebrate the culture.
Yeah. What would have been or do you know from an industry standpoint, when did all this come about, which would have, of course, disrupted some of the landscape?
So the way that I tell it, this is my theory. I'd have to double check with Brian, make sure I'm on the right path. but the 1930s.
1930s.
I do know that in 1890, there was actually, and I've got pictures to back it up, in 1890, a family lived here.
What you mean?
Yeah, like just what I said. So there was a European family from Bavaria. They moved on top. And eventually the log cabin slid down.
What?
Yeah, for real. And they actually farmed on top of it. And they
on this small space?
On this small space. They had
y'all,
corn
it's not very big, y'all.
Yeah. And I can't remember the diameter right now off the top of my head, but yeah, they had animals. So they had, I've got proof. I've got primary sources that will prove that. So anyway, yeah, the Europeans came and settled after removal in 1890, and there was no one here to tell them to stop. And even if they were, they wouldn't have listened to them anyway. So yeah.
That's wild.
It's crazy. These trees were not here. So typically in a ceremonial mound, you will not have trees growing. You will keep it clean and manicured.
Like Oakville. Mm-hmm. But Oakville is a burial.
It is.
Ground.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't speak to that as much. I know that their relationships with the tribes are a little bit different than ours.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I know that their site is also managed, I believe, by the school system, where our building is managed by the municipality, by the city. Mm-hmm. But like the way that we keep it mowed is now that we have a lawn service that's actually helping us keep it up. Because before the Park and Rec department was doing it for us. And there was issues with erosion and things happening. We don't want that to happen. Yeah. So Brian has been in contact with the lawn service that's going to preserve the root system. We're actually only cutting it 5 times a year. Okay. So I brought a group up here in April, and we were all just, it was a bunch of third graders. Tall, yeah, right? They had a blast. I bet. Yeah, and it was raining, but it does okay up here in the rain.
Well, I mean, if these folks were able to live up here,
yeah.
I mean, surely.
It's definitely built in a way that was sustainable.
What would some typical things, based on your experience and research, be found beneath the soil here? Actually, from a ceremonial standpoint?
So pottery shards.
Pottery shards.
So that's actually typical of like the modern practice would be the green corn ceremony. Okay. We still practice that today in lots of different tribes. But here in the Southeast, it's about late August, beginning of September. It's like the new year. Mm-hmm. And so you break your pottery and get rid of anything that's no longer serving you, and you start over. And then same thing, you burn cedar, sage, and sweetgrass. Sweet. And the sage is different than it is like what you buy at the store. It's not that white sage. There's actually a southern sage. So Alabama has their own plants that were used for ceremony. And so that's kind of cool too. I didn't know all that before I started working here. Yeah. I also learned that these are hackberry trees. These are native, but they were not here when it originally was built. Mm-hmm. So these are naturally occurring, and we do have to watch the root systems. I bet. Yeah, because if they grow too deep, it can mess up the mound. And so we've had to strategically move those. And we have to do it in a certain way so they won't rot. Okay. So it takes a lot of work.
It's already rooting out here, right? You see where it's starting to, I don't know if y'all can see in my shoe. Yeah.
So then here, so go ahead and get a good shot of that. Yeah.
Donated. Who donated it?
Right. So this.
Who donated it?
Right. Well, funny. It was that family that came in the 1890s.
The Aboriginal Indian ceremonial mound was donated to the city of Florence February 26, 1945 by Miss Margaret Ashcraft Dabney and her daughter, Miss Josephine Dabney Brabson? Yeah, Brabson. Okay, yeah, that's it. That's it, Brabson. Donated it.
Wow. And they actually just found it.
They donated a ceremonial mound. That is
right.
That is some wicked shiznit.
Isn't it? Okay. So there's also connection with that family with Divert Park. So what's interesting is Divert Park is a park just a couple miles away off of Darby Drive. And it is also Chickasaw homeland. So Chickasaw, the Chickasaw recognize this is homeland, they recognize that park area is homeland, but they don't have monetary rights to them. Now they have access to this site. There was a point in time where the Chickasaw were told not to come here. In the 1980s, in the old museum, they had skeletal remains, human remains, and they found out, and the Chickasaw put down a law that said you may not visit this site. The Muskogee had a similar experience. Muskogee came and visited us last year and said that they were told not to come here until now. And now it's okay for them to visit, and it's because we're in relationship with them.
And the 80s was such a cool time.
I know. It's too bad.
And you still got a-holes in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
It is.
But then it also, just goes to speak to this ideology of supremacy that says that you can't even come back to your ceremonial grounds to pay homage. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I feel like even today that's still part of the narrative, unfortunately, here in this country, and individuals wanting to be steeped into cultural practices, but it's frowned upon, versus traditional, quote unquote, American practices that are deemed okay to do. Whether it's, wearing a mohawk at a graduation, whether it's a person of African descent or Caribbean descent wearing locks or their hair. I mean, it could be so many different things.
Right.
Clothing, you know what I'm saying? Like you get penalized. You get penalized for everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for them to say in the 80s that these folks can't come back, that's disheartening. But you all are here. Y'all are doing great work, and they're able to come back today. So
for Chief Hoskins to come and visit and come up on this mound was a pretty big deal.
For sure.
So So it's good things up here. It feels good up here, I think.
It does feel good up here. It does feel good.
Once you get up to the top.
Once you get up to the top. And as you all see right here, you'll see the bottom down there, you see the museum, Florence Indian Mound Museum. Real quick, tell people before we close out, why should they visit here, and why are places like this important?
Well, I think because it teaches you where it all started. I think a lot of times especially in modern times, there was a disconnection. Or you think about manifest destiny, this is just bestowed upon us. Well, not necessarily. So let's teach the truth and acknowledge those who came before us and acknowledge the culture that is here and still alive, because we owe them that. I feel like it's respectful, and I feel like healing can only come from learning, and we have to acknowledge the truth. And sometimes it is painful, but we won't do any better if we don't know. So we gotta do better.
We gotta do better.
Yeah, but I also feel like just Alabama, even though I have a lot of field trips and visitors come that will kind of fuss about, this is awful that all this industrial area is here, and it is, but we have to look beyond that and say, okay, well, how can we make this more like it was? How can we do this more traditionally? So that's why we have the advisory board. That's why we have teachers that can help us get it back to where it's culturally respectful.
Yep, for sure.
And do better. I don't really know. I'm kind of dancing around that.
No, look, these thoughts that, because it's a loaded question, right? Especially when there's so much behind it that, you want to be as comprehensive as possible with sharing. Like even what you just said, we see the industry behind us, but we do have to move past that because that industry does serve purpose to a certain degree, right? Like it provides jobs and things like that. But I guess my whole thing is, it have to be right here, though.
Right, it shouldn't be.
It doesn't have, but I get what you're saying, right? Because we have to stay focused on the main thing, and so that's super duper important. And this has been great. I greatly appreciate you and your time, Ana. Listen, like I always tell you, if you like this type of content, please make sure to subscribe and share. I'm in Florence, Alabama, for a couple of days, as well as going to Huntsville to get some local history there. I have ancestral ties here to this city via the Forks of Cypress plantation. And If you like what you've seen today, please make sure to subscribe and share. I'm going to put the museum's information in the description of this episode. Yeah, that's it. Peace and blessings.